Yes, I'm live with Mr. Wright, the Skinnies, TB Skinnies Wright, and on an extended water fast, and our minds are full of clarity because I'm on a few hours fast. So our minds are
You're not
prepared
getting.
for this sharp, and our stomachs are empty, and so forth and so on. But we're going to talk about why people are so have a great antipathy to solutions, and are against people who are solutions oriented in general, especially on the right. Conservatives, all sorts of people in the United States are against people who are solutions oriented, because any kind of solutions upset the status quo, which people for the most part benefit from. So people really don't want to change anything at all in the status quo, because if you remove one single brick from the wall, the whole wall, in their opinion, comes crashing down. And whether this be the case or not, this is the way people unconsciously internalize things when you suggest changing anything for the better. They believe any kind of change, be they uh, conservatives or liberals, any kind of actual change is for the worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. Greetings, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Breck. Thank you, Leanna, for once again having me on. So Skinnies is in my name. That's where we're headed with this. I've lost what 30 pounds or so, which folks are starting to wonder, does this guy have cancer? What's going on? But it's also a nod to James LaFond and Montius's upcoming work, Skinnies, which is uh, packed full of hilarity and shenanigans ensue. So I figure it's just fitting in this season. But again, thank you again for having me. What I heard, what you're describing, you described on the macro level the antithesis of solutions oriented work and drive, where you see it in the society, but there's also the micro level. Just throughout my experience, folks will come to you and they'll complain about their situation. And the last thing that they want to hear, so I find, and it actually turns you into a sort of adversary, is when you offer blueprints and possible solutions. I'm the kind of guy, I want to help. And I've found that it's probably not the best use of your time for the vast majority of modern people to offer potential solutions, or even to the point where you're like, hey, our company offers tuition reimbursement. Why don't you, take some classes? They don't have the time, nor do they have the inclination to do so, to level up in whatever that field that might be. And in fact, there's scorn that comes with it. So it's an interesting phenomena. I've seen it in a variety of my past lives, and I found that it could even cause significant strife. And so, really, I think for me, it's really just figuring out the temperament of the person. Are they receptive to actually changing their life? And if so, then dispense away. But there's also the notion, if it's maybe charge for this stuff. People don't value free things. They don't, if you're gonna offer solutions, maybe charge it to them by a premium, as some others out there have discovered, that folks don't value that sort of feedback, or interest and want in seeing that their fellow man succeed.
I don't. I come to the same realization with as you have about women addicts, and I guess other types of people which constitute the majority of the people in the United States. Women addicts and other kinds of people, we could call it, that represent the majority of the population, that I spent my whole life offering solutions to, and being frustrated and angered when they turned down the solutions. But that's not what they were seeking. They were just seeking a place to vent, or a person to vent to, and an avenue to complain through, and they didn't want any kind of internal solution. I've always been had a big interest in self improvement. I think both of us share that to a certain extent, and so I'm constantly sending people all the stuff that I'm listening to, and background and self improvement and so forth, and public speaking, and just general things. How can I wake up earlier in the morning and be more productive and so forth? And then I get annoyed when the content is not received well, and because that's not what they were looking for. They were looking for a shoulder to cry on or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And so consequently, for a long time I was very angry about this, but I've come to terms with it, as you have. I guess it is one of the prerequisites, maybe, of age. You to a certain extent come to understand, but I have not come to accept their behavior. Even though I may understand it, I refuse to accept it. And that's the fundamental goal why I'm going to continue to offer solutions.
Yeah. It's alien, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you come across somebody who squanders their life and you see the potential. I guess I'm still a bit of an idealist. There's still a streak in me where I do believe that everyone has an inherent capacity to thrive in some such area, albeit it could be undiscovered. And so I actually I revel in other people succeeding. I've never been a green with envy person. I can say I've got other sins, pride being one of them, gluttony. This is what got me in this mess. Um, but envy hasn't really been one of them, because I understand that one success does not dictate my capacity for achieving success within my immediate realm. But I notice that there is that green with envy thing throughout my life. I've done some things that would be considered extreme. One was joining the military. I can't tell you how many folks said, don't do that, you'll get blown up and whatever, and you'll come back all messed up. And I did it because I tend to buck the system. If society says go left, I go right. That's just how it is. See our sanction chat from last week, prime example. And then the other thing, it's always served me well to trust my gut and not go with what the circus is telling me to do. The other one was, don't marry that gal. She just wants her green card. Well, we're 15 years into this thing, and we've got 3 beautiful children, and so it's had I listened, it'd be what sort of life would we have what would it look like, that sort of thing. And then there was venturing off, taking my family to Central America just on a whim, and just jumping around country to country for a year and a half, leaving our home behind and whatnot. And people thought we were nuts. We're going to get taken by the cartel. I'll tell you what, a lot of them places were far safer than some of the areas here in the US. I felt quite safe driving at night, in fact. So there's this hysteria and outrage. People really, the envy, there's a streak of envy in humanity that it's almost foreign to me. And it's one that's followed me throughout life. And then here now with the water fast, I'm having people, they're aghast by it. Word got around in the office and whatnot, and I debated, should I even share this thing? And did a lot of prayer there. And I reasoned that seeing the journey unfold, I think is important, just from the perspective of others that come behind. So I reasoned that would be, that's probably the best way to go. But you'll have the reactions vary. Some are genuinely concerned, and I appreciate that. You need protein, because growing up, I was always told that's called starving yourself, and it's dangerous. But then there's a biblical basis for fasting, right? And the early Christians, and probably throughout the course of humanity or mankind, we've fasted. In the winter time, food is scarce. Fasting is an inevitability. You pull from your fat reserves and so on and so forth. And there's a healthy way of doing this. I'm finding I feel the best I ever had. Should I live a life of obesity, or should I go ahead and arrest this now and nip it in the bud and figure out a new way, reprogram this body with the help of the Lord? But then the other reaction that I found is there's almost this. I've experienced it from a couple of folks. There's this almost, one guy kind of took me aback. He goes, "You need to slow your roll." And the look of this hatred almost, it was almost like it was something out of reach for him. And so because I'm willing to do this and do something a little bit crazy, whereas he's stuck in TV land and eating chicken wings and sports ball, that this almost challenges now this is just my assumption, right? This is just something I've observed of people. It's this it challenges who they are. It puts a mirror on them that they're not able to achieve these things, like one day getting up and going and traveling and or what have you, and finding a way. And there's all these excuses. What was the other one? I biked the Katy Trail a couple of years back, and it's like, it was a kind of a lonely trail. Where is everyone? This is the largest railway bike path in the U.S., and here this fat body is spending a week doing this thing, and it was immensely. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way, and I just don't see that with too many folks. And when you find them, you better hang on, because they're good people. Hence, being with you delightful people here today. But anyways, that was a long diatribe.
Yeah, go ahead. She's going to talk.
I went through a weight loss journey myself. I lost 130 pounds overall. Like
Wow.
18 years ago. Is that about right? No, probably not that long ago.
It's like 12 years ago.
Okay.
Wow.
And before he and I met, and I noticed that the people that were not trying are the people that were shaming me for my methods.
Hmm.
And my methods were simple. I simply got up and started walking. My mother dropped dead completely unexpectedly, and I got up and started walking. I still had kids in my house. I didn't want to die like my mom. So I got up and started walking, and literally the only thing I changed, it took me 3 years to lose all the weight. And the only thing I changed for about the first year and a half was walking. I walked longer distances as the days went on. I got a puppy that was a Jack Russell, and if you don't walk them, they will drive you bonkers.
Yeah, I've had one.
I mean, I got her specifically for that reason. And, but the people that were trying to shame me for how I was going about it were the ones that weren't even trying. And the other thing I noticed is when you get up and you start moving your body, what you crave, what you're hungry for changes. You're not hungry for mashed potatoes and gravy and fried chicken. You're hungry for, green beans. Of course, I love green beans anyway, but salad. Your body starts asking you to feed it what it needs to keep up with what you're doing now. And that's what happened with me. I don't know if that happens with everyone, but that's what happened with me. And but I remember there were several people in my office that were shaming me because instead of going to the break room at lunch and sitting around and talking and eating a frozen dinner, I was going out and walking and coming back and eating a salad and going to work.
Mm-hmm. Crabs in a bucket, huh? Yep. Yeah. So walking, I'm finding, I don't plan on running anymore. I ran in the military and beyond, and it just is such a it really it's so high intensity. It really, I think it's exacerbated some things for me, and I find that walking really, what you've described, I think it's a link to so many different elements of life. It's an inroad into wellness, but then also, and let me know what you think. When I get out and walk, like I've been hiking, I try every day to go find a new place and hike now. And it's funny, a water fast will do that, where it's just like, I want to get out and do stuff. I'm not this decrepit person. But when I'm out there, I'm thinking about everything. My mind is like, I'm writing books in my head. I'm praying, with talking with the Lord. I'm thinking about, how to conduct my life further in the relationships that I hold, and just philosophizing, looking for, trying to forage, but not finding too much out there, looking for fossils. And it just opens a whole bunch of things for you. And I mean, it just makes me feel so much better. And cleaner. What do you think, Leanna?
I agree. I had ruptured some discs in my back 2 months before my mom died. And I had just been told, you got to lose some of this weight or we got to do surgery on your back. And I was like, no, you're not cutting into my back. So I
Yeah.
was struggling with, how do I do this? And then my mom died. And then I got this weird resolve to take off walking. And I used that time to kind of talk to mom, say my goodbyes because it was so sudden. I didn't have a chance. I talked to God about my mom and about everything, asking for strength to do this so that I could be around for my kids and not have to have surgery. And, I did a lot of that. And then after I passed that phase, I lived in a residential neighborhood. So I was just walking all the various blocks. And, I started really looking at the flowers people planted and
Yeah.
the trees and how different they all were. And then I started thinking about how miraculous it was that
Yeah.
we were given all this to have. And um, I think it really helped me physically, clearly, but it also helped spiritually and mentally.
Did
And
you go
it
ahead?
just was a great experience. And until my health started really declining, I still walked, not as much because I couldn't. And I can't do it now, but that is the one thing I miss the most about the changes in my life.
Did you notice? Were you seeing? Was it almost like you were seeing your town for the first time, like noticing things that you didn't notice before? Did
Yeah.
you experience that phenomenon? That's an interesting one, where it's like, I didn't know that was there. And like when I bike the Katy Trail, you see a part of Americana that you rarely see. Like you see these small towns tucked away that you'd never know existed, that
Yeah.
are, like you can't even really find them otherwise. And people, they welcome you in and they're just so stoked. It's like anywhere you go, if you're interested in the people and you're kind and you're not trying to, you're not one of these Californians that are coming in. I'm from California, so I guess I have a modicum of ability to do that. But anyways, trying to tell them how to live, and and demanding of you're in their backyard, you're in their neighborhood. But if you carry yourself wherever you go, you want to learn the language, or you want to know these people, they'll love on you. And and I think just walking, you run into people and experience people in a way that a commute you'll never see. You could commute, for years on end and just never really experience it.
If you walk a neighborhood with your kids, it's a completely different walk. And if
Yeah.
you walk a neighborhood with a puppy, even that's it. People will come out of their house to talk to you about your puppy.
Yeah, especially a Jack Russell. They're amazing. They're so smart. I know it's a little bit of an aside. Mine, we could never keep him in the backyard. They get over walls and stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
he'd go around into town, and we wouldn't even be concerned a bit because he'd always come back. And they're just so smart. I want to ask you, Leanna. So, why do you think those folks were like poo pooing what you were doing? Why do you think they were, you know, what do you think about that? Like your coworkers, why were they kind of, well, everyone's we call them sea lawyers in the Navy, where they know better than you. And when it comes to health, everyone's got an opinion. Don't eat eggs. Don't do that. So what do you think
I
that was?
think the biggest thing is shame. They see someone out there that is in probably worse shape than they are in, because all the people that were giving me a hard time were in better shape than I was. And I think it's shame that they were thinking, good grief, she's going out there and trying, and I'm sitting here complaining and doing nothing about it.
Yeah. I've always had a lot of respect when I see someone that's larger, in a gym, somebody who's trying, because I've been that person. I've been both people. I've been the one that's been in shape, and I've been the one that's like, oh man, I got to address this. I've gone up and down, on the scale. I've always had mad respect for somebody who's willing to change their lives, and I've noticed out of people that are really fit, like the Sean Glasses out there, you know who I'm talking about, who, he's such a kind guy. Like those types love on people that are struggling. I almost want to shed a tear because it's a beautiful thing, honestly. It's where they want to see, I get sentimental sometimes, but where they want to see you, win in life, and they're clearly they're miles ahead of you, but it's the person that's willing to kind of like meet you at eye level and work with you that I think that's just a beautiful thing. And I think that I feel that's a, it's a sacred thing.
It is, and there's nowhere near as many out there as there should be.
Yeah. What do you think, Dr. Breck?
Well, I first of all think we should do a separate podcast sometime on your biking the Katy Trail, which I find very interesting, and I would love to hear.
Oh, I'd love to talk about it.
I would love to hear you do a broadcast on that, actually. But let's do that. Like, I mean, I'm gonna make a list. I'm gonna write it down. It's like this is a feature topic, but I definitely think fasting as we get older is easier, not harder, because our bodies are not developing, and we've pretty well developed all the muscle mass we're going to develop. And so people who are older and are not open to fasting are just being irrational. I think we can go longer when we get older, and we need to go longer for longevity and healing more than shorter. And yeah, I do come from a fasting culture. I am also a glutton. I'm just better at hiding it. And so I've been working on all that as well as you. It's just I've just been in this like a year or two longer. So the jokes about the camera. I mean, I used to be on camera with my gut, so without my shirt on. So I mean, it's
But you owned it. You owned it, right? Like,
yeah, I did, but I wasn't proud of it either.
right.
It was just the whole point was that the whole plan was to lose the weight. So I'm just saying I relate to your deal, I would also ask, how is your family accepting your weight loss? What is their reaction?
That's a great question. So I'd say I there was a bit of isolation for me, to be honest. That doesn't mean I didn't skirt my responsibilities as a father and a husband, but there was a bit of a distance. I was with the Lord, I'm still with the Lord, and at least with my journey with Him, I'll find that I'm not talking with him as much some days, and then I go, I'm sorry, Lord, let me get back to your word, and so it's like that. But there was a lot of that. I find there's definitely, I find a greater connection during the fast with him, and that's naturally, I mean, that's to be expected too. Not only biblically, you see that Jesus himself fasted for 40 days and prayed unto the pray he spoke directly with his father, and then Elijah and Moses, and then the testimonies and the experiences of fasters. If you go on YouTube and you look up 40-day fast and you just listen, the vast majority are conducted on a spiritual basis. And I started this with weight loss in mind, but it very quickly became one where weight loss is tertiary, and this is more of a spiritual thing. And this is also a way for me, I think, to it's a statement for me. It's this, food has been a very central part of my life, excessive food at that. And so this for me is battling my demons and and also showing the Lord that I'm serious, So there's that. But then on to my family, I we've reconnected in a very profound way where my wife she does have concerns, and rightly so, but I'm trying to educate her on some of this, and I'm also trying to heed all precautions. um, but there's a great deal of pride. She lets me know that I'm real proud of you for doing this. This is because you're doing it for our family here. And I don't want to be the guy that like Leanna said, it's you kind of look ahead to your respective family members who have passed on. I don't want to be the person that can't walk my daughter down the aisle. I don't want to be the person that misses out on things because due to my gluttony, and that's an imminent possibility. Um, at one point, I was 350 pounds, and that's just a world full of pain. Right now, I'm at 274. I started this thing at 303, so that is a significant drop. Um, yeah, but really the biggest gains I think are more with regards to the spirit. It's more with regards to healing the spirit and healing the mind. There's a lot of time that opens up, and you find that you refocus on the things that truly matter. We spend a lot of time preparing food, talking about food, eating food. A fast is really a chance to kind of gain some perspective. But then also, what I'm finding, my skin is healed up. Pains are lifting. I still have pain. There's chronic pain, but I feel a lot better now. And I hear fasting with autophagy and ketosis, your body reallocates to those areas, those long-term injuries, and they start to heal. I mean, it heals it. There's different things that you've carried around, these injuries, and so I'm finding this. I saw a comment by Mr. Gray in one of my, but he mentioned that he did a 3-day, and some of the warts on his hands were gone. They just lifted. And that's remarkable. I'm feeling this stuff. I did a 10-day fast in El Salvador, and I remember that like there was just I there was the healing component there, that I think isn't talked as much about. It seems weight loss is a sort of probably more on the secular side of things. It's more for weight loss, but the vast majority of people that make it to 40 days, it appears to me that it's a distinctly Christian phenomena, and it's rooted biblically. So
Yeah, the just to go along with what you're saying, the fast specific. Sorry, to my train of thought got derailed. Uh,
no, it's okay.
it's really not.
All day in a while.
Yeah, after the second day is the hardest part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And once you get past that, it's all downhill. And the healing, you know, I would just throw out the example of, well, your stomach's not working all the time, so the body can allocate whatever the stomach was doing, whatever was devoted to helping the stomach do it, to the healing process. That's
Yeah,
how it happens.
your body, my understanding, it looks for, and I could be wrong, I'm a quasi, I'm not a nutritionist or anything like that, but I'm rusty, but I believe it looks for uh sources of like insulin and whatever food you're consuming. But then when it goes into ketosis, ramps up after day 3, it starts going that direction. Now it looks for your fat reserves. And so there's this idea that, well, isn't it going to eat at your heart and your muscles and whatnot? My understanding is that if you have enough fat on you, the body isn't going to go ahead and do that until it's at its, break glass in case of emergency kind of situation. And I'm grossly overweight, so even now, and so I don't anticipate there being any issues down the road. But it's a fascinating thing, this body that the Lord built, that he had it in mind that our bodies work in this manner and are able to do this without our knowing. Seemingly, it's just such an interesting thing.
Well, I mean, the Bible talks about us being fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
So it's a really, it's a, it's a wonder of the world, the way the human body is developed, or just the way the human body is. It is a miraculous structure, the human body.
What kind of crazy things have you done to better yourself? You seem like the sort that's, been at a crossroads 1 or 2 times and did something that would be a little unorthodox that, the normies would scoff at.
What have I done? I'm asking my wife.
I think the most extreme thing that just someone off the street would think is severe, but his body seems to really shine. I would say that 95% of what he intakes is animal protein.
Well,
Yeah.
no, that's just at the moment, but
Well, that's extreme.
I also eat some nuts, some
me.
fruits, and I'm not a carnivore diet person.
No.
I'm not advocating for the carnivore diet, but I eat a lot of protein and stuff. But I have a far harder uh, job than most people, and the fact of the matter is, most people in my profession break down all the time, but they don't eat right. And I have done studies. You have to, and I'm not trying to not answer your question. I think she gave one answer. The other answer is I fasted a lot. I've been on a number of restrictive diets. I've used a lot of what do you call them? Foreign supplements before they were popular. I used what was that deal? It's I used SARMs before they were popular. I used Kratom before it was popular back in like 2010. You
Yeah,
know, so I've
that's
done
a
a lot of,
that's a that's a long way back.
yeah.
My first kratom experience was back in 2009. I was in the Navy, and it was kind of one of more of a an experimental thing. But my story about kratom. That's probably for
Yeah.
another podcast, and that turned out very different. I'm very familiar with kratom. Yeah.
But just in general, I've experimented with a lot of stuff. Where were we going with the other
Things
deal?
you've done.
No, well, with the meat specifically, I was
Oh.
going to talk about some about the.
Well, that you don't. I just think.
I try to be on an extremely restrictive diet, and I'm gearing up for a big fast. But like tonight, I'm going to spar tomorrow. I'm not eating tonight. But and so what I've done to inform some of my habits is I've studied a lot of older people, and I do this a lot, and their habits and
Yeah.
practices and their
Yeah.
diet. And
That's
I've
how you
done this,
learn.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I compare that with, you know, people in different age categories, be they 80s, 70s, 60s, who have some longevity in whatever they're doing. So, you look at their other factors and see how they relate to you. Do they have the same blood type?
Yeah.
Do they, what is the similarities that they have to you that you could be enabled by adopting their habits?
Yeah, are they from the same regions,
Yeah.
ancestrally? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's all stuff that I've been interested in and worked on. Like I said, in my profession, I think people break down a lot. People are always complaining about breaking down. Oh, it's terrible. And I watch these kids come out of school, and we'll talk about that after a while in terms of jobs and stuff. But I watch these kids come out of school, and it's like you cannot eat garbage and do this heavy work, and you have to stretch your hamstrings at least, and you got to do this, you got to do that, and they don't listen, and they end up having very short careers, and a lot of them don't want to do the work in the first place.
Yeah,
Actually, right?
that goes beyond health too, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
that hits a lot of different domains where it's like, they want the young folks. There we go. I'm showing my cards now. I'm one of those
the kids
curmudgeon
these
types.
days.
Yeah. They expect to walk into a six-figure job. They expect to have like a hot girlfriend, They expect all these things, but they won't do the work.
Yeah,
I even see it, because I've also I don't really read. I haven't really been a self-help book guy, but I have listened to to different folks, like red pill types. I've done this in the past. I've since, I'm not into that stuff. I've since matured. I think I don't know. I think some of it when it comes down to, don't get married and, and all that sort of stuff, just like you're like, well, you're no better now than the enemies that that you what is it that you consistently badger in your videos. But I digress. But what I've found, and just I'm sort of an anthropologist myself. I like to kind of see the communities around things, the people involved. Like the comments section is pretty enlightening, and these are the same characters who they jump from red pillar to red pillar, self-help book to self-help book, but they don't actually apply any of it. There's, and that's where the old adage that self-help books, they just gather dust. It's so true. It's like, maybe that's what's fundamentally wrong with you, is you're not, you're asking for someone to give you the cheat codes, and you're not, that's yeah, and they know it too. That's the thing. These gurus, they know it. It's they're selling shovels and picks and to gold miners is what they're doing.
Yeah, you made me remember I was going to do a video called "There's No More Hacks." There's no more shortcuts. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The age of shortcuts and
Did
hacks
you
is
do
over.
that one? Is that one that's in your noggin, or have you done that one?
I don't think I did it yet. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you made that point because that's been on my mind to tell people. It's like there are no more hacks, and there are some little techniques you can use to make work go better, but you have to be working first to get to those things. I just took a guy out of school. He's freshly out of school, and he wants to do everything like he learned. And I said, "That's fine. Go over there and work." And he worked for about 5 hours very diligently, and got very little done. And at the end of it, he said, you're right. I want to learn your method."
Good.
And
Good
I
for
said,
him.
I'm glad you took that attitude. If I set you up to succeed the way I set you up there, but I didn't tell you how to do it. I said, just go do your thing. I'm going to do my thing over here.
Yeah.
And you watch me go through a lot of, get a lot of work done while you sit over here and do what you're taught, which the education system is bad in all the trades as well as everything else.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm better than the school. It's that I taught at a trade school myself, and our method was more effective. But the point of the matter is he was willing to listen technique-wise. And I'm not going to teach him secret hacks to make everything go faster. I'm just going to teach him stuff that works more effectively. And it involves work, but if you work efficiently, it speeds up the process.
Well, yeah, because what it is, they teach, and this is a variety of disciplines. They teach you this aged 1970s way of the world. These professors, they themselves, or even the trade schools. I mean, I've never gone through one and whatnot, but I've observed some of this. They've either haven't been in the game for so long that they're teaching methods of yore, or they've never worked a day in their life. So you've got business professors and whatnot who've never run a business, right? So then, you throw these kids out there and they've got this total misconception of how the real world works. And it's like, well, what's the value of this sheepskin? And companies are wising up, and whatnot. And I think when you mentioned trade schools, I'm reminded of Mr. Warland's video that you sent me, where he talks about this, the woodworking trade school, the department in Oregon, how it doesn't, it's just further departed from the real world, and these old skills are no longer taught. They're no longer even known. And I further connect that with like COBOL programmers and programmers of these mainframes that sustain, the DoD. No one knows how to work them. These legacy systems, nobody knows how to work these things. Nobody can possibly comprehend in the present these technologies, which are still very much in commission.
Well, let me. This is not a digression, but are you familiar with the Foxfire series?
No, I'm not.
That's probably be up your alley. What are the Foxfire series? You laugh, so tell him. Well, the Foxfire series was when a bunch of people in the 70s went around collecting a lot of the old knowledge from old people in interviews and stuff about how to do a lot of different things. And one of those things that sticks in my mind was herbalism. So look up the Foxfire series. It might be of interest to you, but it goes to your point in general that nobody is doing that kind of curation today.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Curation of knowledge.
Yeah, it was an oral history project largely done in the Appalachians and the Ozarks, where they went and tried to get as much knowledge from these old people back in the 70s as they could.
That reminds me of James. I'll check that out for certain. That sounds like something I would be way into. Yeah, I like, the ethnology thing. That reminds me of James Mooney, whom, he was a white man, and he worked with the Cherokee, and at the end of the day, like, my understanding is that the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and before anyone spurgs, oh, he said Indians, they themselves call themselves Indians. So, don't cry about it, right? They actually really appreciate the guy, even though his methods were, there was a range. Some of it would be argued as sort of, what's the word? Like he would bribe some of the Cherokee to get at some of this ancient knowledge, of the formulas and things. With the Cherokee, it's some of these formulae, they lose their power when they're written down. But thanks to James Mooney, this stuff that would otherwise be lost to the present day Eastern Band, they have it now. It's been curated. So even though his methods were dubious, he's still a friend of them. I just thought of that, when you were talking about that series. Yeah, if we don't commit the stuff to writing, then it's lost to the annals of time, isn't it?
Yeah, I try to do, maybe it won't be writing, but like film projects, and it's hard to get people to do interviews anymore. I'm talking about various people. There's that soft white underbelly guy that interviewed.
You've reached out to him?
No, I haven't. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to interview people who are in trades or have experienced things in the past in this region, whereas the soft white underbelly guy focuses primarily on interviewing prostitutes who don't really have a problem. He pays them too for interviews.
He's kind of come under fire a little bit recently. I like his stuff. I find it fascinating. But
yeah, but my point is, it's hard to get people who have never been exhibitionistic to sit in front of a camera. That it's not a comfortable situation for them, and so, at least in my experience, I find it very hard. I'll give you an example. There's an old black cowboy in Arkansas that I've been trying to interview for years before he dies, and he was known colloquially as Nigger Earl, and he would tell you, and he would tell you himself his name was Nigger Earl.
That's how he introduces himself.
Yeah, he was the only black man in northern Arkansas for a long time. But the point is, I have personally approached him for interviews a number of times, and it's been very difficult to.
Oh, as have I. I've set up several appointments with him, and he cancels every time.
Yeah, he no-shows. He just doesn't. Here's the background. He's an alcoholic, a retired alcoholic, and he really doesn't feel comfortable. If I got him a good fried chicken dinner and about 10 shots of whiskey, I'd get him talking. But it'd be a problem. But sober, he does not want to face the interview process.
So would that be an ethical dilemma for you, akin to James Mooney, where you're boozing him up, which literally Mooney did. He boozed up some of the Cherokee to get at that information. Is that the ethical dilemma there, perhaps?
No, I just wouldn't do it because it would kill him. He's at the point where another drink could kill him.
Yeah, there's that. Do you think there's superstition with some of these folks too? Okay, I'll tell you this much. There's nothing about me until recent times, and I've been chock full of ideas, wanting to get stuff out there, and it hasn't been until recently. and that I've done that, and that's because I was primarily a corporate man, right? I didn't want to jeopardize my, because I have unorthodox ideas, and clearly, and so that's always a sort of Damocles over my head, and I still sort of have that, where it's, am I next to be canceled? Am I next to be, are they gonna, put two and two together and ruin me? But I've found that in my present line of employment, I'm relatively safe, and I've already been blacklisted from my past. My past network is pretty much inaccessible to me, and the details behind that. That might be another video at some point we could get into, but maybe that's part of it. Although with the trades, these folks are largely self-employed, a good many of them, and if they're not, their crowd wouldn't be overly concerned, I feel, in getting butt hurt and going after you over an ideology. Would you say?
Well, I expect as much problems with me. Well, first of all, from my perspective, it's a little different because my stuff is so out of the norm that normies can't even internalize it. So they don't really, it passes over their heads entirely. So not worried about it. But if they were, I would experience blowback from the right
Yeah.
specifically, since most of my clients, I think they're on the right, but my views on women and stuff like that would be very unpopular. But
Yeah.
I try to be more open about that in any case, and I found that a lot of people, including more women, are agreeing with me on women.
Yeah. More so than men, probably.
Yeah, even so, because no one hates women like other women.
Women know women. Yes.
Yeah. So
Right.
this is becoming. I was just talking to a lady tonight, older lady, and she's in her 70s actually, and she was saying, she by herself keeps up this beautiful place with flowers and a yard, garden, everything, and she said, I don't know what'll happen to the place after me. And I didn't say anything, but I said, nobody else over 50 can work enough to maintain this place. And she actually works 2 jobs and maintains the place by herself.
Yeah.
So the point of the matter is that I said, yeah, women are too lazy today to maintain anything or something to that effect. And, she had no quarrel with this statement. It was like a statement that she was afraid to make that she felt comfortable in hearing from me. So sometimes once you say things aloud and put them into the air, people feel like it's safe to think that way.
Yeah.
That was their impression, but they were uncomfortable feeling that way. It's kind of like I would call it the Elijah situation, not to talk. I know you have a thought, but the Elijah deal until Elijah started talking about things, that only that small minority of the 7,000 that had not bowed the knee to Baal were, afraid to say anything. But once he came forward, everybody, arose as one against the worship of Baal. But, they had to hear it said aloud first.
Don't you see that with everything? It almost feels like when you're a pattern noticer, you're three years ahead of everyone, if not more, and you're a pariah. But then all of a sudden, 3 years goes by, and now they have this sheepish look on their face where it's, I was never about that thing back in 2020. No, sir. Yes, you were. It's all over social media. You were one of those zealots, and we all got to see it. But anyways, I think when you're a nuanced thinker, and look, I've got my flaws, so I'm not trying to puff myself up here, right? I get things wrong on the regular. But when you're a nuanced thinker, you're able to acknowledge that 2 things can be right at once. Does that make sense? Where
Absolutely.
there's this idea. So folks, that like this whole idea of per capita just going right over the heads of the average IQ person. They just don't, they can't comprehend it. Or the apex fallacy where, well, I know somebody like that that isn't the way you're saying. Well, yeah, of course there's exceptions to the rule, but let's not ignore the phenomena at play that we see each and every day. And I guarantee you, when push comes to shove, you're advocating that we get flooded with all these people from who knows where, who don't share our ideals, but you don't want them in your neighborhood. You want them in my neighborhood.
Well, it's a very interesting point, and like you brought up with we used to complain about. Well, you could shut down anybody in the past by saying that's anecdotal evidence, and it's not germane to this discussion, and that
Yeah.
used to work. But now people, in their narcissism, believe that their impressions or experiences count for something scientifically in a discussion.
Overrides the data.
Yeah.
Essentially. The macro data, yeah.
So it's a hard process, but what I'm advocating for is the disenfranchisement of a lot of these people's views, and I think people are just on the crux of accepting that yes, we have to disenfranchise these people. They are going to be a problem if we don't, because they're basically mass conveyors. They're basically automatons that can be utilized by the mass media methods getting in their brains and basically using them as zombies against you. You know,
automatons. You just said, didn't you just say that? Yeah, that's the perfect word for it. That's why the NPC meme is so salient, because it's a truism at this point, the conduct anyways, where it's, you ever run into somebody who you're looking through their eyes and there's nobody home. There's no, they're acting like a man. They're responding. They're coherent, but nobody's home. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. What was the other thing? Oh goodness. Wait. Keep going. I'm sorry. I had my own moment. I guess we've turned the corner in age where we're flipping with our.
I will relate one anecdote. I don't think I've told you this anecdote, but I don't plan to write another book or anything, but I would like to make a comic movie about 2020, making fun of the hysteria.
Yeah.
And now that you brought a lot of stuff up, I think about all the hysterical stuff that happened in 2020 and want to make an amusing movie about it. But I'll tell you, very early on, like March of 2020, I was concerned about COVID, as a lot of people were. I think we had COVID back in January of 2020 because I caught it from some people who had been around some Chinese investors in December.
And so you got it early. You got inoculated early.
So we didn't even know. But in any case, so I decided to take it very seriously, and I was among the first to wear a mask and gloves in public. And I was in a grocery store stocking up on food and possibly toilet paper. But again, this was before the rush. This was before the average normie had gotten into this, or there weren't even masks. I went to the hardware store and bought a bunch of dust masks.
Yeah.
And so I went to the local grocery store in the small town wearing my mask and gloves, and there was
the only one.
And there was a friend of mine, or a friend of a friend I knew quite well, who was in there. He was a biker and kind of just a big guy, used to hang around town and stuff. And he started making fun of me. It was like, why are you wearing?
You're like the hipster, you did it.
Yeah, exactly. And I often think about it since then. Yeah. Ever since then, I think about it. Boy, you really shouldn't have been mocking me, at that time, but it was hilarious. I would like to make a movie scene where the guy, and it was good natured. He wasn't, he was good naturedly ribbing me about it. But, by April, I'd figured things out and I never wore a mask again the whole time. I
also gave other people a very hard time about it.
Yeah, I gave people a hard time about it. But the point is, I was amongst the first to do it.
That's interesting, actually.
Go ahead.
I mean, there's a rationale behind that, I think, where it's, I think that's more of the pattern recognition where there was that window by which, who knows, like what are you gonna, there's just a flood of information and you're discerning, but you ultimately came out of it in short order.
I will say that was the sickest either one of us have ever been.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was COVID. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting well. It was like that was because obviously I have a good constitution, and we actually had another couple, or might have had another two couples living in the house with us.
It was just one. Well, no, there were two.
Yeah, I was harboring fugitives at that time. Still, I've since reformed, but
not
I won't tell.
Yeah, but in any cases, we were all sick collectively, and it was like I couldn't break the fever. But in any case, I'm just saying that, and to your point of pattern recognition, I feel like those people who have good pattern recognition should be treated appropriately in society. We are,
we should be afforded.
We should be afforded certain advantages by society, and we should be appreciated by society, which we very well are not.
I wouldn't suggest to elevate myself to shaman status, but I do wonder if that is the, a bit of the shamanic, that there's just some people who are on the outskirts of society, on the fringes. Roman McClay would have probably referred to this archetype as the shaman. Now I believe that the shaman is a rare. It's a rarer. This is where I disagree with McClay. I believe McClay believed they were more prevalent than they really are. I actually think that you'll find one within a 100-mile, radius, or if not more, type of thing. I just see it as exceedingly rare. But but there's still some folks that I think can have that, and certainly with the uptick in spurgery. Let's just be real, spurgery. I probably have whatever the heck that is. I'm not going to get diagnosed because I don't believe in the whole psychology thing. I think it's a bunch of hogwash. But nevertheless, maybe there's some of that within select people who are able to see things a bit more clearly and are able to question things. I like to say, so I use the word joiners. Like most people are joiners. They want to join the club. They want to join with the predominant thought. I've been a bit of a contrarian my entire life. I hated my teachers, elementary school. I went through the hell of public school. Your mileage varies depending on the person, but I just could not stomach being told falsehoods, being like, and not being able to articulate as a kid, even though I know I'm being bullshitted. And I see it, and just in consulting some of the older literature with my girls, when in homeschool, we go to the yesterday's classics, the 1800s, 1700s, we do that stuff. And it's like our history has been rewritten. It's plain as day.
So many times.
Yeah. Right. That's a good, yeah. So many times, like it's overlaid with whatever, just like with the whole COVID thing. They redefined not only what a virus is, and but also what a vaccine is. Now it's edging into the mRNA technology, which, by the way, is a wholly new technology. And the safety tests, if you were to unfurl the safety data in one of those vaccines, it was blank. Reason being is that this is for emergency use, only emergency authorization, so they didn't have to disclose this stuff. And then I'm told by my employer, well, it's safe and effective. You need to take it, you know. And it's like, have you done your research? I've written papers on these things, on tuberculosis and viruses, and the nocebo phenomenon, which is thou shalt do harm, and it's also coupled with that. There's this mass hysteria associated with the mere suggestion that something is spelling doom. So you tell a society that everyone's going to die this winter. What was it? Biden could come out with something. It's a statement. This is going to be a winter full of death and what have you for the unvaccinated. What do you think that's going to do on a public health level? They know what they're doing. That's the nocebo phenomenon at play. You're doing harm. Not only that, with viruses, you let these things ride out. It's going to come. It's going to get you, right? It's going to run its course. Once a virus is out, and it's a perennial thing. What happened to the grandmothers and the mothers who would set up chickenpox parties? That's no longer. That is like so Stone Age now.
I attended chickenpox parties.
Did you participated?
My brother got chicken. He's 6 years older than me. I slept in bed with my brother while he had chickenpox.
Yeah, and you turned out just fine,
And I didn't get them till I was 23.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I got hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is a kid thing. It's something that an infant gets, or a young child. I got it as an adult from my daughter, so we both had it. But I guess when you get it as an adult, it's far more severe.
Yeah,
And so, like,
as an adult, yeah.
my fingernails fell off.
Yep.
My hands degloved, like the superficial skin just seamlessly. It was the weirdest thing. And my feet, I just looked miserable all over my face. This. And I went in to the VA to get checked out, and they brought in like these apprentice doctors. What do you call them? Fellows or whatever. And there was like a whole group of them taking pictures for the textbooks because it was the worst case they ever seen. But again, these things run their course. Maybe we might be going off the rails here, going kind of off into Never Land, but it's an interesting thing.
These are the things that society accepts because somebody told us.
Yeah.
Like I was that parent, they would say, give your kid Tylenol to break the fever. No. Viruses need fever to burn off. If you give your kid Tylenol, you're making them sick longer.
Yeah. And that's props to you, because having a sick child, it does scare you. Like flus are scary things.
I mean, if you can stand the fussy kid, let them get it over with and make them better faster.
It goes back to God's good design, right? He designed these bodies to be able to do as intended.
Did you know that people that went through the influenza in the what was it, 1928?
Yeah.
1919 or something? Are you talking about the influenza post World War I influenza?
Those people were immune to COVID.
Interesting. Wow. So they were able to correlate that, huh? Or make that connection.
They won't make it public, but yes, go do some research on that. That flu took my granddad's oldest sibling. But they say that the people that were still alive that had caught that flu and lived did not get COVID.
It must have been, they must have been so similar by a lot, or the virology or the nature of it must have been so similar as
Yeah.
to prompt a response within the body to outright reject.
So, yeah.
Wow. So Carter Obrock, rather, I read his A Land Without Shade, which we're going to get into at some point here in the near future. Talk with the guy and talk about his novella. It's awesome stuff. He gets into the COVID pandemic and sort of the aftermath within his speculative future, and it's really interesting the way he frames it in the discourse between the younger generations and the boomers, and how there's sort of a retribution there. Not that I call for such a thing, only that I think there is this unspoken thing, and you feel it in the air. I don't know about y'all, but I think some of us have not forgotten. Let's put it that way. Some of us have not forgotten. My life changed in that time, where the way I see the world and people. I'm a lot less, I guess, naive, and a lot more aware of the willingness of my fellow man to, within a moment, they would send you off they'd be willing to send you off to an internment camp. That's the sort of thing that was being discussed at that time that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the parents, the ailing parents who could not experience their family around them. That is just, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's one that I think is, the children masked up on the playground, put through this, some of these kids, they didn't properly develop the ability to enunciate words because they couldn't see mouths, moving. Alcoholism. I lost a few friends in that time, due to suicide, that's the repercussions of that, I think, are it hasn't run its course, and it's one of those things I think we're just not ready to talk about.
Well, back in 2020, as COVID came in, I was at that time a member of a small study group on Facebook, and they said, "What should we do?" The question was posed, "What should we do about COVID or what have you?" And I said, my deal was, I said, we should execute 1/3 of all doctors right now, and that should solve the COVID problem.
Yeah.
And of course, which caused a lot of problems or a lot of anger and heart responses and stuff. But
you would say that, yeah, that's very Jonathan Swiftian.
Well, I was serious because that would have threatened the medical community sufficiently to make them behave properly in their response, whereas they had carte blanche and, dare I say, sanction to do whatever they wanted in that time, and they acted the fool throughout it. And it's funny, we had a prominent doctor in our area first advocate for what is that horse warmer?
Oh,
ivermectin, yeah. And then advocate against ivermectin, all the while, peddling weed in a dispensary. And it's like, just the whole thing is ludicrous and ridiculous, and it's only because Comte imbued us with this respect for physicians by putting them in white coats and making them the equivalent of priests that we take them seriously.
Yeah, literally. That's the priestly class. I grew up where a medical doctor was the very zenith of the social classes, and you see it. Yeah, I mean, they are elevated in such a way that and it seems they outright reject that which is efficacious, because you don't have a patent on the things that work. So therefore it needs to be pushed underground, um, and and the pills and the vaccines are the way to go with that. And it's funny, the precedent there now after COVID, where it's you just simply do not question vaccines.
Yeah, and they've completely rejected their Hippocratic oaths,
Yeah,
and which do no harm, which you can't know about the vaccines specifically. It's
yeah,
just, but in any case, that's, I believe, there's a lot of, and this is the deal. Under the state of emergency, doctors can do whatever they want or say whatever they want. This happens in hospitals all the time, and
yeah.
pressure or
Informed consent was completely cast out, where the expectation was at one point, the doctor is to be transparent as to the potential risks. Everything I heard is it's safe and effective, and there are no known risks. Even though in the animal studies it says a very different thing, and folks can look into that, of course. I know we kind of went off into into this other realm, but I do think it connects with the primary theme here, in that folks sort of snap into the grid within the matrix, where they stay and they remain for a lifetime, and they often the visceral reaction to having that placement challenged, to having their worldview challenged, to even considering doing something that isn't necessarily popular but will be of benefit to you. I see a connection there, anyways, philosophically.
yeah, it just has to change, and I think there will be a spiritual change when God feels it's appropriate for it to happen. I really believe that the spiritual change will happen when God feels it's appropriate for it to happen, and so that's what I am more interested in simply trying to reject as many facets of Satanism in society today as possible, which as Dugan said, the American society is pure Satanism. Just I mean, when we think about it, the sacrament that comes from the aborted fetuses, which are now in so many things that you don't know about. So you may have received that sacrament of the what they call the sacrament from the aborted fetuses unknowingly in some kind of product that you may have used or some point
Yeah,
related to like the spirit cooking and all that stuff. So
you get it. Yeah,
God tells his people not to partake of the wickedness, around them in any form. Come out of her and not be a part of her. He says in Revelations, I believe. So
yeah,
uh, that's just a very interesting deal. And that's my whole modus operandi for the conceivable future.
yeah. So so moving away from perhaps the misanthropic angle and being more of the embracing faith and um what is it, and sort of seeing the hope in it all, is that accurate?
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, I said this like a couple of years ago. I want to say that I was very early into the red pill, not because I was interested in that specifically, but it was all content online. And I wrote an article about Royce the reactionary predicting that he would turn right within a few
Yeah.
years.
He
But
just disappeared, didn't he?
yeah, he got married and had kids.
That
But
tends to, yep.
what I said last few years is you guys need to drop this red pill, because here's the bottom line. Chad and Stacy just had kids and moved on with their lives, and everybody else
Yes.
is doing whatever. But Chad and Stacy and the normal people got married, are just going on and getting married and living productive lives, while you are sitting on the sidelines. Now, granted, there's probably no Stacy for you. I had to tell the guys this.
You get a Becky, though.
Yeah, there might be a Becky. Who knows? But
or a Maria if you go overseas. Even better.
There's something probably. I mean, but I specifically was being spiteful, obviously. But the point is, a lot of people are going about their lives and being happy while you're sitting on the sidelines and decrying everything.
Do you know where I saw that thing? Not to cut you off, please keep going.
No, go ahead.
I saw it when Roosh V, one of the three so-called godfathers of the red pill of the manosphere, Roosh V became a Christian Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
And he stopped publishing his books. He was done with it. He moved on, and he was very vocal about it. And to my knowledge, he still is. I haven't looked recently, but props to him. He did that, and he basically moved on from the past life. And the response to from his orbit, people that he knew, they dogpiled on him in a very just distasteful fashion. They called him a grifter. He took the God pill. He's a sellout. And these guys, and you look at them today, you look at these guys, and they're just so lonely. They talk about just I saw it on one of their panels where they were just dogpiling on Roosh V, and now you see it with Andrew Wilson coming up as well. However you feel about him, it's like he's hitting him in the Achilles, and they have to deal with him. They have to interact with him because he's become so prevalent, and he's offering an alternate pathway, which is get married. You can be masculine and all these things that the red pill espouses, and be married, and that and that it's God's will. God wants us to multiply and be fruitful. And this is something you just see it on their faces. You see their sort of you just see it on them, and they're lonely people. I'm convinced, you see them over a number of years, they espouse like sleeping around and debauchery and hedonism. Where does that get you? It's a very lonely life, I'd argue. Everyone's got to make their own path, but I feel the more that we're aligned with God's plan for man, and I feel that that's the way to go. And Roosh made that choice, and to take this seasoned person, this guy who is considered one of the founders of the manosphere, and malign him in this way because he changed. We change over time. I'm a vastly different person than I was a year ago, than 3 years ago, than 5 years ago. And that gets at the very crux of this broadcast, is that if you're not changing and growing, then you're dead.
Yeah, most people stop. What was the age? Most people stop developing their mind at some ridiculously young age, as a philosopher said. I don't remember. But, as you may have noticed from podcasting pretty regularly, the algorithm only favors certain people. At the period of time Roosh came forward, that was a more open time where the algorithm, you could attract a following organically, which he did coming out of Royce's shadow. And so he was more of an organic creation who decided or became horrified by what he had become, and decided to not only repent but also make amends by becoming a monk, and which he has done. Which pretty cool.
Course correction.
Yeah, much respect to him,
Yeah.
because you gotta pay for your sins. That's a very unpopular
You gotta
view of
repent.
Christians, and a lot of people, once saved, always saved. Whatever. I'm not contending with that. I'm just saying you got to pay for your sins. Your sins
Yeah.
aren't going to. They may have been washed away, but you're still going to have to deal with the repercussions of what they have done, like King David in the Bible.
Sanctification, right?
Yeah,
You're saved, but there are very real consequences. And also what I found, at least in my walk, is that since I was saved, I don't want to sin and disappoint my Father. There's something that happens when the Holy Spirit is within you, the Holy Ghost, where he changes you from the inside out. Does that mean you're not going to sin anymore? Of course not. But we can aspire to being Christ-like, and that's where the fruits come in, I think, where you can see a change in somebody. And like when I think of Roosh, not to put him on a pedestal, I don't know the guy very well, right? I don't know the episode, around his conversion and whatnot. And I love that. But the prodigal son comes to mind, and notice the men of the Bible and the women of the Bible, deeply flawed people. Moses, deeply flawed person. And that's something I think folks that haven't read the Bible, they don't get that nuance. They don't see that or even they'll use it against Christians, like, well, look at what King David did. Look at what, of course, we're man, we're sinners, and for God to be able to transform King Solomon to show him that all these riches, all these he anything he sees as his, essentially, there's still this discontentment, and all he wants is the Lord at a certain juncture, right? That's profound stuff, to be moved. The Lord picks the people you least expect. He doesn't pick he picks who's the right person at the right time, essentially. And a lot of those people, they're deeply flawed.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like I said, I have nothing but good things to say about Rush. Uh, I always thought of him as a lightweight back in the day, and just seeing him overcome everything and being willing to do that, but also continuing to put in the work over time. He's never come back, which says a lot about him. I believe he is a full-time monk.
Wow.
And he is, focused on working for his church. And so that is so estimable in my perspective, in my opinion. And so,
Yeah.
I agree with you on Rush. 100%.
Yeah. What do you think, Leanna?
That, if you really want to look back over history and see what it means to become a Christian, the Bible is littered with God taking the worst of us and making the best of us.
Yeah.
And that's why nobody should feel hopeless.
Yeah.
And I think once you do have the Holy Spirit, it becomes your job to spread that, to help people not feel hopeless. Now, don't be pushy about it. There's even verses about them. Don't be pushy.
Yeah. I've had trouble with that, and I've gotten better, but
Because you lose people when you become pushy. because they
Yeah.
slam down an iron wall and you've lost them.
Yeah.
But if you read and study and ask for help from God, He'll show you how to talk to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And prayer as well, praying for somebody, the power of prayer, it's something that I didn't quite understand the power of that, you know. I and really in not understanding that I'm downgrading or attempting to downgrade or really um thinking that I like disrespecting the Lord in a sense, you know, because all things are possible in him. And also um I I've got family, they're not saved. I'm the crazy, crazy Christian hermit, right?
Right.
Type. And I've tried different things with them. um and some of it has been fruitful, but there's been a lot of there's a lot of sadness there that I haven't been able to do it. But my problem in these years has been, I think I can do it on my own. I
Yeah.
thought I thought, and it's like, no, that's not your job. That's the Lord's job. He's going to be the one to save them. All I can do is share my testimony, show an example, and pray, and be open if they're willing to, if they want to know more than I share. But ultimately it's the Lord's work. And that's where I got things very wrong and backwards, is I just was trying to, you get all just like going back to the red pill, the red pill rage, they call it, where you figure things out for the first time. That, and there's sort of a thing when you're saved where there are a few years for me where I just want to tell everyone, and just kind of go
Yes.
go buck wild. And and the thing is, that can be dangerous too, because when you're a babe in Christ, I still consider myself a babe in Christ, to be
Always.
honest. I feel uncomfortable at times talking on these matters, on a broadcast like this, because I don't want to get things wrong. But when the Lord kind of puts things on my heart, I'll share. But back then, it can be dangerous when you don't fully understand the true nature and glory of the Lord, and the gospels, and sharing erroneous information perhaps. So
I just recently, very recently, like within the last 60 days, started writing a devotional every day for a very small group of women. And uh, I don't know that any of them live locally. I think we're all spread out. There's only four of us, I think. And I preface pretty much every day by, look, I am no expert. I studied this verse. This is what I got out of it. This is my life example of it. Please, oh, please come back and share with me your thoughts on this. And it's made me be able to see things from different angles by their responses every day.
yeah,
Isn't that what studying the word's about? Being able to get into it and see how other people see it, and learn what other people take from the same verse you just read.
yeah.
I mean, it's very eye opening. And I've done the same verse more than once because it meant something a little bit different to me a different day.
Yeah, yeah, right. Where it's a living and breathing his word. It's not just a book. It's a an it's an eternal living word, and he speaks to us through it. And it's
Well,
something that folks that some folks that they don't believe, they don't see it in that, they don't experience it in that way perhaps, um until all of a sudden,
it clicks.
the light, yeah, the light turns on, and it's different for everyone at different times too. It's so
Like a
incredible.
good preacher says, the Bible meets you where you are in this moment.
Right. Have you ever had verses that you just cannot comprehend for the life of you? And then all of a sudden, like the book of Job, all of a sudden it just hits you like, that's what it is. Thank you, Lord. That's what you're trying to tell me,
Yeah. I have a folder. I read a Bible app every day, and every day it brings me a verse of the day. And so I screen print that verse of the day, and that's what I take inspiration on for my devotional, right? And there's been one that was in my folder for probably 25 days. And I just kept flipping past it because nothing came to me. And then Sunday of this week, I opened my folder and I read it again. And I looked at it and went, oh, okay, I got it. And so I used it for my devotional that day because I finally had it say something to me.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I
love
left it because I knew someday it would make sense to me, but it hadn't yet. And then it finally did.
Yeah. It just wasn't your time until then, perhaps,
Yeah, it's very interesting how either individual or collective, or when I say collective, I mean when you're studying the Bible in a group or by yourself, either is efficacious in a different way, but I think both are necessary to developing properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see where we see how things devolve when God's not at the center of it. We see what happens in the society when humans are just cannon fodder, or there's no meaning behind life, devoid of meaning, and then anything goes, and we see this onward march into just all the worst parts of humanity, and then some will argue, well, what about the Crusades? What about this? And I think it's a little bit short-sighted. They don't realize that they're steeped in Christian values, that the very ethics that tug at their heart, that was all by a creator, unbeknownst to them. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's people have forgotten about being created in the image of God and having respect for that, and that's why, for example, abortion is so. It's not an issue even amongst Christians, really, because why would you want to destroy the somebody created in the image of God? You know,
yeah, well, that goes back to the narcissism you were describing, where it's about me and YOLO, and it's about, you know, me being able to do what I want because, you know,
well,
Jesus paid for it all, so I can go ahead and just live like
there's
however I
nothing
want.
greater than me.
Yeah. And that's really the devil's deception. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the enemy's deception, is do as thou wilt, it's just do whatever, whatever suits your fancy. And that's what brought me to this point of fasting, because I desecrated this temple by which the Holy Ghost resides in. And I think I think it's important that we're honest with people, that we're not the nutritionist that goes, you can be healthy at any size, that's just how you're built. Let's get you on these pills, and no, let's tough love, let's tell people the truth. I mean, it might be a fool's errand. A lot of folks have bought into the notion. That doesn't mean be cruel to people, you know. I try to love people, um, and understand that, look, we all go through things, but I think I think isn't truth and love, aren't they intertwined? I mean, Jesus Christ is the truth and and the life. Um and he wasn't the hippie that modern Christians like to portray him as. He's very much um the sort that's going to tell you the truth, whether it's likely going to hurt. I read the Bible, and oftentimes it pierces me right there at the heart,
Well,
and
it
tells
says,
me
"Whom
something about myself.
whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth."
Yes, we've lost some of that. You walk into some of these modern churches. I've been to a few. You don't see Bibles in hands, do you? You see a rock show. You know, you see, yeah, it's if we're not following the Lord's word, are we not capable of listening to voices and being tugged in directions, our own, I guess, fancies, our own desires, our own flesh? I think so. I mean, you see it.
I am blown away. I've been to one, two, just in the last 4 years, through two different churches is all. But they don't. Used to in church pews at the back they had the rack, and there was a hymnal and a Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the churches had hymnals but no Bibles, and the church I most recently went to didn't have either. They had projections at the front of the church.
Wow. What is that? It's
Wait
like
by that a little bit. I don't. That doesn't. That blows me away a little bit.
I mean, doesn't the enemy come as an angel of light? Doesn't he, um, he doesn't he isn't he the he tries to comfort you with deception, just you know, and I really do think some of these institutions, these churches, I think they're just bastions of wickedness. I really do. Yeah.
Well, I I agree with you, and I think they are even more so pernicious. What was it? Younger described as the hell lights of civilization. Uh, you know, entries to hell specifically, portals to hell specifically, because they purport to be something else than
Yeah.
what they are, and specifically are designed to mislead the sheep, so to speak. But it says, "By their fruits ye shall know them," and it's certainly true. We've noticed some things with that church, particularly. They baptize people who are not should not have been baptized, and that's one example of their failures.
Well, when you worship mammon, right, where you're looking at numbers, you're looking at more congregants, and that's what it gets you. And the devil, he's a copycat. He warps and he copies um all the he copies the creations of the Lord, the goodness of the Lord, but he twists it and contorts it. And I think that's what we're experiencing.
Yeah, an inversion of everything, or an alternative inverted form of everything.
Yeah.
In any case, this has been a really good discussion. We're at an hour and a half, which is awesome. We wanted to go into alternatives, solutions for the youngest generation, but we may have to, which we started on, but we may have to do that specific broadcast another day.
Well, I want to say I think we kind of have gone into it
We have, but
because the youngest generation is going to have to do different than the one before them, which, in my opinion, is turning to God.
yeah, but he had some other ideas
I
that we
know.
did not specifically get to express tonight. So what I'm suggesting is we do a continuatory broadcast on the subject.
I'm okay. Yes.
Do a part 2. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. I'm sure this is a hefty topic, right? It's.
Yeah.
I agree with Leanna. I think it. I think it all goes back to the Lord. But there are actionable things that one can do to just become a better person, right?
Yeah. And not just succumb to the nihilism of the world as it is today, which is 90% of it on the left and right is succumbing to the nihilism and trying to be realistic about things rather than, honestly, if you weren't trying to be realistic about things, that's a cowardly way of looking at it, in my opinion. Just having to deal with the circumstances rather than clinging to your faith, that better things happen when you are less realistic and are more willing to cling to your faith and your God. So I think that's an ideal summary that we've worked on for everyone. And next week we're doing Mr. O'Brock. Is that correct?
Carter Obrock, yes, he's a Midwestern farm boy, Army veteran, homesteader, and prolific science fiction author. And we got to get him out there, do our part, because the guy, he's got some really good stuff. So
We talked about Wednesday. Is that right? Will that work for you?
yeah, Wednesday at 7, I believe
Yeah.
we've settled on,
Yeah.
and yeah, that'll be good. I had read A Land Without Shade, his newest novella, and just wanting to kind of dive deeper into that and get a front row seat into the mind of the author.
Yeah, and I will read it in the interim period as well.
Perfect.
And so
It's
we'll
a
both
short
have,
read.
we'll both have a deal with him, and I look forward to hopefully meeting him in the near future, as I don't believe he's far situated from us.
Mm-hmm.
He's not very far, so that'd be awesome to get together with him. I will. Yeah. She's gonna work on that as well. So we might do a live stream instead of a recording on that one for people to participate in if they want to.
Nice. Beautiful.
But in any case, do you want to do a continuation either tomorrow night or Friday night? It's up to you.
Friday, I'm doing something crazy. I'm doing a 3-hour bike challenge I signed up for. So that was kind of crazy. That is going to be crazy. But we can do, let's see. It might have to be the weekend. Can we do Saturday?
Saturday night should work.
Okay.
I should be home by 7, so let's just play it by ear that night. So, well, yeah, but we should be home by 7.
Yeah, no rush getting settled. Yeah, we can totally.
Well,
be able to
it
wing
shouldn't be
that.
a problem. I have my Amish mercenaries on Saturday, so but they like to be home by sundown. But
Cool.
it's been a great broadcast. I really enjoyed interacting with you, and look forward to Saturday night. So
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you both.
Wrap it up.